Okay. Today we'll be learning the Teflova Medal. Itmer, we learned the memra lechi ha'oimed me'elo, a lechi which was standing from itself. In other words, it was not specifically constructed to be a lechi. It was there. It was a piece of protrusion on the wall, which was made when it was constructed. It was constructed for other purposes, nothing to do with a lechi. So Abaya says have a lechi. It's a lechi. Rav Omar loy have a lechi. If it was not constructed for the purposes of a lechi, it's not can't be considered a lechi. Says the Gemara. If before Shabbos they weren't relying that this protrusion should be a lechi, so there's no argument that it's not considered a lechi. So if that was not set aside, that was not designated. If it was not designated to be a lechi, so then for sure it's not a lechi. Ki pligi. When is the machloek, the argument that it was designated? They didn't do anything to it, but this was from before Shabbos. This was supposed to be the lechi for Shabbos. So then is but the lechi is part of the way the building was constructed, or whatever it is. It was there, and it was not specifically constructed for a lechi. Then we have the machlekes. Rabbi says lo yahav lechi. It's not considered a lechi. Since it wasn't constructed for the purposes of a lechi, lo yahav lechi. It's not a lechi. And right. Now, Abaya says it's a lechi anyway, since it's there and it can serve as a lechi, right. And Rashi brings, for instance, that if you had it before Shabbos, let's say you had a different lechi, the lechi which was there got broken on Shabbos. So therefore, the question is if this other lechi which is there, if that can serve as the lechi, and because it's not sorry. That is the case of when it's for sure not a lechi. When it's for sure not a lechi, if we had a different lechi before Shabbos, if we had a different lechi and that lechi broke on Shabbos, then for sure, because it means that before Shabbos it was never meant to be a lechi. It was never meant to be a lechi before Shabbos. It's for sure not a lechi. But in a case when it was there from before Shabbos and there was no other lechi, that was there before Shabbos, that's the case of the machlekes of Rabbi and Rav. Anyways, the bottom line is that Rav needs it should be specifically constructed for the purpose of lechi. Chasalka Daitach originally was thought just like the arguing in lechi, the same machlekes will also be in a mechitza. That when is a mechitza considered a mechitza? If Dafke was specifically constructed for mechitza, and the Gemara is going to now have a few questions from mechitza, where we see that even though it was not specifically constructed as a mechitza, nevertheless it's considered a mechitza. I mean, it seems to me, learning the Gemara, it's quite clear that of course a mechitza, even if it's not specifically constructed to be a mechitza, is a mechitza, because we don't bring rayas and brises from dinim of what's considered a shus hayachid. A shus hayachid is something that has to have full mechitzas, and it doesn't have to be specifically constructed. But so we don't bring brises in that, because even if you don't do it for the intention of a mechitza, it is a mechitza. But I think what the intention is, when the mechitza is supposed to achieve something else besides just being a mechitza. For instance, if it's supposed to be a wall of a sukkah, or it's supposed to be lechi to be matir when the mechitza needs to achieve something else, not just the actual mechitza. For Rishus HaYochid, there's nothing to be achieved. If it has mechitzas, that's a Rishus HaYochid. There's nothing to be achieved. But in a case when the mechitza is supposed to achieve something, then it has to be specifically made for it. I think that's the pshat over here. Anyway, so the end, the maskon of the Gemara is that the mechitza it doesn't make a difference. You don't have to specially construct. But at this stage in the Gemara, we thought that just like a lechi, according to the opinion of Rabbi, just like a lechi has to be specifically constructed. Similarly, also a mechitza also has to be specifically constructed according to the opinion of Rabbi. And therefore, we're going to ask three kashas over here, three rayas, that the mechitza, even if it's not specifically constructed, it's still considered a mechitza, and therefore it's going to be a question on Rabbi. So let's start. The first one is toshma is you make a sukkah between the trees. The ilon is tfaneslo, and the lonas, they are the walls, the trees. That trees go naturally, and the walls are actually trees. The walls of the sukkah. So it's shera, it's kosher. So what do we see from over here? That even though the sukkah needs to have three walls and has to have tfanes, mechitzas, three mechitzas, so even if it's there by itself, it was there, and it did not specifically for the purpose of a sukkah. Nevertheless, it's kosher to be used as mechitzas of a sukkah. So it's a kasha on Rabbi. It's a right to Abaya. So Gemara says, no, there's no kasha on Rabbi. It's not on mitchila that he planted the trees originally to be walls of a sukkah and b'meila. So these walls were made with the intention of being walls of a sukkah. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, pshita is a davar poshel. Why does the Mishnah have to tell us it's kosher if he made it specific for the sukkah? So of course it's a kosher. Why should it not be a mechitza? It's good enough. So the Gemara says, because since the one is not permitted to use a tree, because we're not permitted to use a tree because maybe you'll tear off something from the tree and climb up and take something from the tree. The kitzah, so part of that gzeira of not using a tree, we thought that also is that it cannot be used for a sukkah because that's part of of being mishtamish. Using it for sukkah is part of the gzeira of being mishtamish be'ilin, which you're not allowed to be mishtamish be'ilin on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Therefore, you can't make the sukkah of that. Kamash Milan, that's not part of the gzeira of maybe using it as a wall of a sukkah is not considered part of the gzeira you're not allowed to be mishtamish be'ilin in case you tear something off from the ilm. Toshma, another kasha on Rabbi's shita that hoyasham ilon together. It says if it was a tree or a geder, the chitzas hakanim or a chitza from reeds. Kanim, I think the translation is reeds. Yeah, like bamboo sticks, that type of thing. Kanim is nidr mishum diyumen. So if the mechitza is made up from these items, so that's also good enough for diyumen. What's diyumen? Diyumen is 2 planks of wood, which basically means 2 planks of wood in an L shape, each side of the L being 1 amma, and then if you put them on the 4 corners of the area around a boil of water, then you'll be able to carry in that place. So that was one of the dinim which they did. One of the things which they used for the oil regel. They would make 4 dyumadim, means 4 L-shaped planks of wood, which they would put on the 4 corners, and then they would that would be the mechitzas. That would be the 4 mechitzas, and then and they would put that around the boil where we get the water from, and the people would be able to carry from the water from the boil, which is Rishus HaYochid, would carry to the area which is outside the boil, because they're carrying from the Rishus HaYochid into that into that space which is not Rishus HaYochid. So we see over there that even a tree and so on, which grows by itself, is considered mechitza, even though it was not with the intention of being a human. A tree is also considered a human. Let me just say that you don't need to have it should be 2 planks of wood, even if you're able to cut it out. If you have a block of wood and you're able to cut it out to be the size of the two planks, so even it's not actually in an L shape, that's also considered a mechitza. Therefore, a tree, since you're able to cut it out and you would be able to get if you engrave it a bit, and it would come, you'd be left with an L shape. So then that's kosher enough to be a jumen. So the Gemara answers, there's no raya from that. It's also when he planted that for such purposes to be a diumet would be the mechitza. So the Gemara says, so what's the chiddush in this price? If you specially planted these things and you put it there to be the diumet, so why is it? What's the difference in that than any other beam and block? So the Gemara says, there is a chiddush in this price. What's the chiddush? Chitzas hakanim. Kona pochas mishlosh that because it's in the mechitza of kanim, it says chitzas kanim, which is the mechitza from like bamboo sticks, that type of thing. That's a kanim. So so there, each kona is a distance from the other one. It's not solid. It's just a distance. You put one kona and the other kona within 3 tvachim, when we have lavud, the principle of lavud. So that also using the principle of lavud is also kosher, and that's the chiddush of this brisa. But of course, you have to do it specifically according to Rabbi. He will say that you have to do it specifically for the purposes of making a jumet. And just like Abaya asked the question about this, whether this is kosher enough for the if you have these the konim which are less than 3 tvachim from each other, if it's kosher enough for to be a jumet. And Rabbi showed from this brisa that it is kosher, and that's the chiddush. Hakol ponim, we're talking about the trees, etc., was specifically planted for. Toshma, and another question on the shita of Rabbi. It says Ilan HaMesech Ala Oretz. If you have a tree and the branches are hanging, a tree is the tree is quite tall. Let's say certainly the minimum height of this tree would be 10 tvachim. Maybe it's more, maybe 20 tvachim, whatever it is. But the tree has in it 10 tvachim, and then you have the branches, but the branches are like a willow tree situation. The branches go all the way, they hang down. The branches hang down so much so that the branches are actually they hang down, going mamish to the ground, even they're not touching. It says this: if the branches, when they're hanging down, they are at the edge of the branches. Yeah. So the end of the branches, they are not higher than 3 tvachim. So that means that you, from the ends of the branches till the ground, you can apply the principle of lavud because it's less of lavud because it's less than 3 tvachim. So the tantal in tachtos you're allowed to carry underneath it. Why? Because it has mechitzas and it has mechitzas and it's a 10 tvachim high. It is 10 tvachim high and it has mechitzas. So we see that even without this is a tree. So even if it was not specially made for mechitza, it's still considered a mechitza. So the Gemara says, this is also talking about if it was specifically planted for that. This was specifically planted for that to be, they should be able to carry. Sorry, it was specifically planted to make like a private area to be, and so therefore, since it was specifically planted to make this private area, and you should be able to carry there, so therefore you're allowed to carry. One second. Sorry, this, let me explain. This, I said, is specifically planted in order to be able to carry. No, it was not specifically planted in order to be able to carry. It was specifically planted in order that somebody should live there. Somebody should stay there, to be as a bit of a dwelling place. That's why it was specifically planted. So we're talking about something which was specifically planted to be a dira. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, if we're talking about that it was specifically planted to be a dira where somebody can live there, and that's yeah. So if that's the case, the tantal bekula, you should be able to carry however large the area is. If the tree covers the canopy of the tree covers a very large area, you should still be able to carry. And whereas Aloma Omar Rabbi Shua a metalplin by Ella basis sign. Right. So why does it say that you're only allowed to carry if it's less than basis sign? Basis sign is 50 cubits by 100 cubits. Is that if 50 cubits by 100 cubits, that is the area of a base society. And the din is that if an area which is not for living, an area which is not for living, so you cannot carry, even though it has mechitzas, if it's larger than 100, the area, it doesn't have to be exactly that shape, of 100 amas by 50 amas, then you cannot carry that. So he says, so he says that if that's the case, that it was specifically planted to live there, so that means it's a place where it is a dwelling place. This halacha, that if it's larger than 100 amas by 50 amas, is only a place which is not fenced off to live. If the place which is fenced off is being fenced off to live there, and so then if it's to live there, then it doesn't make a difference how large it is. You're always allowed to carry that. This is midrabanan, by the way, that they said that if an area is larger than base asayim, you're not allowed to carry that. So if you're saying you plant it in order to live there underneath the canopy of the tree, so if that's the case, so why is there a limit to base asayim? So the Gemara answers, Mishum the Havadirish Tashmisha La'avir, the whole Tashmisha, the whole Dirish Tashmisha La'avir, a metalton bola base. He says because it's not meant for living there. It's meant for this dira. When you plant a tree there, that's meant for somebody who's a shomer of a field, etc. It's not the person's not going to bring in his fridge and his and all his couches into that place. When it's meant to live there, that's meant to live for the shomer who's guarding the fields. So he should have a bit of a quiet and cozy area where to live. Now, this is a dira shtashmishal abre. The whole dira, what's the use of the dira? Even though it's a dira, if he sleeps there at night, stays there at night, but it's only meant for the outside. It's not meant for the inside. So a dira shtashmishal abre, the whole use of the dira is only for the purposes of the outside. So then so even if it's made for a dira, if it's larger than the base of sign, you cannot carry that because it's not a proper dira. It's just to be the evidik dira. Because he has to guard the outside, that's why he's there. So since it's not a proper dira, so even within the dira, if it's larger than base of sign, you cannot carry. And the situation of the tree is it probably is. It's not talking about somebody who decided to build his kitchen cabinets and all that within that area. Just the guard the fields. But the kids transvarim again. So this mechitza was done there in order to in order that the person should be able to live at, or the gardener or the guard should be able to live there. That's what it was. So therefore, that's why it counts as a place and as a mechitzas, and therefore you don't carry that. Okay. Another question: Rabbi Toshma Shavas Betel. If he Shabbos, we're talking about if Shabbos, the person is in a certain area, not in the city, and so he was in a tel, it was on top of a mound, Shugavoya Sora, which is 10 tefachim high. So he's this Shabbos he brought his food and everything, and he's going to be rested. He's going to stay in the Shabbos on this mound, and therefore, we're talking about the Tchum Shabbos, how much will a person be able to walk there? And this mound is from Arba Amas to Arba Amas till Beis Hasayim. So if it's that size, because if it's less than Arba Amas, then we don't need the mechitzas are not relevant. The point of these mechitzas of the mound, because it's high 10 tefachim, is that when you want to walk and you're not in a city, so then you have from a place where you are, you can walk 2,000 cubits. If you're there from before Shabbos, not if you arrive on Shabbos. If you're there from before Shabbos, so then you can, from the place where you are, you have your arba amas. From outside your arba amas, you can walk 2,000 amas l'kol ruach side. Now, so therefore, that's why it says the brayso whom may arba amas. So if it is this tail, this is less than arba amas, then the halacha is not relevant, because anyway you have your arba amas and 2,000 cubits from the arba amas. But here we're trying to enlarge the area that you should have a bit more than the 2,000 amas from where you are. So if you're on a tail which has mechitzas, so then the whole tail has mechitzas will be considered your dira. So then you can start counting the 2,000 amas from outside the dira. So from outside the tail, so you have a bit more extra area, because the tail, which is considered your dira, is because it has mechitzas. That's why it's considered your dira. So it's considered. So therefore, it's considered your dira. Therefore, right. So therefore, you'll have a bit more. There you have that the whole dira is considered like arba amas. So you may have a large dira, which is, let's say, 20 amas by 20 amas. So the whole thing is considered like your arba amas, and the 2,000 amas which you have to walk it starts from there. And then it says v'ad beis hasayim, because if the area is larger than beis hasayim, then it loses this din of a dira. It won't be there. It won't have this din of a dira. So the kids so this is a mound. Now a mound is something which occurs naturally. Now, so we have 3 examples over here. One is the mound, which occurs naturally. The neka is a sort of pit or split in the earth, which is Omar Kasara, that's deep, 10 again, it's 10 tvachim deep, it's mechitzas, therefore it's considered your dira for the Shabbos. Huma arba amas of Beis Hasayim, the same story, that is from arba amas till Beis Hasayim. The koma ktsura, what happens is also is an area, is the area of a field where the crops are all standing, and the 10 tvachim high. The wheat and all that stuff is 10 tvachim high. What has been done? A little area in the middle, they have they cut the comma, they cut the wheat. So therefore, you have an area which the wheat has been cut, and that's where he's living there Shabbos. And around it, all the wheat around that is actually like a mechitza, because it's 10 tvachim and or more. So comma ktsura v'shiboyles makifas and the stalks are surrounding it. The kid says, so what do you have? So you can walk in that whole area, because that's your dira, which is the whole dira, even if it's a larger dira, unless it's larger than Beis Hasayim, it's considered what's it called? It's your dira. It's considered like daled amas. Then from outside this dira is where you start counting the 2,000 amas. So chutzla alpayna. Okay, so we see there that these mechitzas, these mechitzas are all it's all natural stuff, and so it's not been specifically created for mechitza, and nevertheless we say it's counted as a mechitza. It's a kasha Rabbi who says that you have to have mechitzas, mechitzas lechis, all that have to be done specifically for the purpose of being those things. So he says, maybe you'll tell me, okay, he made these mechitzas special. Okay. So Bishlama, okay, so you can done Bishlama Koma L'chaya. Okay. When it comes to Koma, to the stalks and all that, it's true. Okay, he planted the wheat in order that later should be a mechitza. Okay, say that. So that you can answer that way, it was done special. Elatel v'neka, the mound, and the neka, which is the split in the rock, whatever it is, that Michael Maimer. Well, these are natural occurrences. How can you say it was made special? So the kids are advarim, so we see very clearly. This is after the fourth price, so we see very clearly that mechitza is considered a mechitza, and to the dinim of whatever dinim which mechitzas need to achieve, it's considered a mechitza, even though it was not specifically made for that purpose. If it's a natural mechitza, it's there that it's also considered a mechitza. Ela b'mechitza, ela b'mechitza. The Gemara concludes like this. Ela b'mechitza is kol amalei pliga to have a mechitza. That the mechitzas they're there even if it was not specifically created in order to serve the purpose which it has to serve. That's also considered the mechitza. Keep this machlokes in Abaya and Rabbi is only benegated to lech. And why is the machlokes benegated to lech? Once we've established that mechitzas do not need to be. Once we've established that the mechitzas do not need to be specifically designed to be a mechitza for that to have the to achieve the status of a sukkah or whatever it is, or a dira or whatever you want to do. If the mechitza of that, it's always considered a mechitza. So once we've established this principle, the mechitza is always considered a mechitza, even though it's not specifically created for that purpose. So therefore, the machlokes is going to explain. The machlokes is lechi considered a mechitza or not? So according to Abaya, that lechi is considered a mechitza, so a lechi would have the same din as a mechitza. It doesn't have to be specifically created, doesn't have to be specially created in order to serve as a lechi. According to Rabbi, which is going to give a different reason for lechi, so then it needs to be specifically created for to be a lechi, for it to have the effect of a lechi. Keep lechi Abaya l'tamei is the reason the Amadi says lechem shu mechitza. He says that the reason of why is a lechi effective, that permits you to carry in the mavoi, because a lechi is considered a mechitza. And the mela, since the lechi is considered a mechitza, so mechitza asur mela have a mechitza. And we just established the principle that mechitza, even though it's not specifically created to be mechitza, just the mere fact that it's there, that it is a mechitza, that's what it is. So therefore, that's good enough. It's the same thing. A lechi is a mechitza, so therefore, you don't need to specifically create it for the purpose of being lechi. He says the reason why lechi permits you to carry in the mobile is because it's like a reminder. So therefore, if it was created for that, is have a hecker, then it's a reminder, because here we have this piece. What's this doing here? It was specially created. Then that creates a proper hecker. It's a recognition, a reminder. That's a proper reminder that you shouldn't carry from the Shus Rabbi, Shus Yochid, etc. About the Eloi, if it wasn't specifically created for the purposes of being a lechi, Eloi have a hecker, so it's missing, and it's not sufficient hecker. It's not sufficient hecker that's over here. Its purpose is to differentiate between the Shus Yochid and Shus Rabbi, and the Mela, so it's not kosher to be market carrying on. Toshma will the Brisa. So now we're going to ask another few questions on the Shitta of Rabbi that says about Lechi. These questions, till now the question were from the Chitza, now the question is going to be from the situations which are called the Lechi. Toshma, well, in the Brisa, Avne Geder, Hayotzis, Hageder, Budolo, Zuluzu, Pafas, Mishleisho, Ein Tzorich, Lechi, Acher, Zain Tzorich, Lechi, Acher, Shleisho, Tzorich, Lechi, Acher. So, this, if you have the wall of the Mavi. So you have the wall of the Mavi. Now towards the entrance of the Mavi, there is the bricks are sort of the bricks are protruding from the wall into the Mavi. They're protruding, but you have like it skips a brick. One brick protrudes, then another brick does not protrude. So you have like it's a bit like it's ready for bricklaying, where one brick protrudes and one doesn't. So at the beginning of the mavui, so the wall itself, some of the bricks protrude, and some of that do not not protrude. They're still level with the rest of the wall. So if the gap, but the thing is, so those protrusions are considered like a lechi. So therefore, if you have one brick, then the brick on top, if the gap between these bricks which are protruding are more than 3 tvachim, then they don't connect, because we don't apply lovat. So it's not considered a lechi. But if the gap between the bricks which are protruding is less than a gimel tvachim, then it's you say lovat, and therefore it's considered a lechi. So, but now, so this is part of how the wall was made. So That's how the wall was made, and nevertheless, it's considered a lechi if there's not too much distance between the protruding bricks. So Gemara says, no, no, it was especially made to be a lechi like that. That's what it's speaking about. So it's no kasha and rob. That's if that's the case, it's over portion. Why is it telling us it's a lechi? Why is it telling us if you made a chatchila to be a lechi? So it's the portion. With the three, we have in the opinion this concept of love. So therefore, it's a good lechi. Why does the Bryce have to tell us that? So it says, I would have thought that this is not really, even if you built it lechatchila for that purpose, right, it doesn't look like this. Looks like it's being built in order to attach the rest of the wall, another wall to it, because it's mamish. The bricks are all ready to put other bricks into the gaps. That's how brickwork is done. So you thought this is just the mesa binyono David. It's just to tie up the next wall, which is going to be attached to it at right angles to attach to it. That's what it's not a lechi, even though your intention wasn't a lechi. That's what you made it for, but it doesn't look like it. So you would think it's not kosher. Therefore, it's a chiddush. It is kosher. So there's no raya against Rabbi, because maybe it's talking about the case they did having fetched toshma, another raya that we talk about if you have two walls are meeting. Now, that would be, for instance, just trying to give some sort of example. If you have a mavui, which is open, the whole entrance is open. That's right. The walls of the mavui go to the end of the mavui, and but it's totally open. There's no fence there. The neighboring mavui, or whatever chotzer maybe there, they put a wall at the front. So they have a whole wall at the front. So and these two, so they have the wall of the mavui and the wall which the neighbor or whatever it was made for his mavui or whatever, or the chotzer, what they made to be to fence off the front from the Rishus Rabim, so that the wall which was made to fence off the front from Rishus Rabim, so that they meet at right angles, right? They meet at right angles, and let's understand that the outside the wall, which is separating from the to this neighbor of the Movi, the wall which belongs to the neighbor of the Movi, which is separating from the Rishus Rabim to the neighboring Movi. So that wall is, so to speak, on top, is in front of the, or is sticks out more than the that front wall of the neighboring mavoi is the one which is further out. In other words, the wall of the mavoi goes up till the front wall. So the front wall from the neighboring meets the wall of the mavoi, but the wall of the mavoi only goes as far as to touch that front wall. So it touches that front wall. Now that front wall wasn't made so exact, and therefore, so that front wall doesn't cover the entire thickness of the wall of the mavoi. So it covers partially the wall of the mavoi, and that means then that front wall really is like it's like a lechi, but you can't. If you're standing in the mavoi, you can't see it. When you're standing inside the mavoi, all you see the wall and then the street. You don't see that lechi. If you're standing in the street, you will see that the front wall covers partially the because it's at right angles, and therefore it covers partially the wall of the mavoi. And you can see there's an extra piece. There's a wall, and there's an extra piece after that wall. So that's this lechi. Or you can have that in a different situation, and it would then that it actually that it completely covers this front wall of the neighboring mavoi completely covers the wall of the mavoi, and it goes beyond the wall of the mavoi. So it sticks into the mavoi a bit, it sticks into the front of the mavoi, and therefore the people in the mavoi they can see a bit sticking out, which comes from the neighboring wall, which is sticking out. It goes beyond the wall and sticks out into that mavoi area. So then they can see it. The kids, so the kaisel should see the kids, they don't meet exactly. It's not a neat meeting. So kiv is bein shenir b'chutz v'shavim b'pnim. Whether you can see it from the outside, but inside you can't see that they're not actually meeting, or whether you can see it from the inside or the outside, you can't, because it's covering the whole wall of the movie. So the outside you just see the wall, you don't see the wall of the movie, you just see a wall which is the front wall. That's all you see. The kids are so it's counted as a lech. So you see these people, they're all making their own walls, and it's not specifically made for lech. And nevertheless, it's kosher for lech. It's a kosher rule. No. Then we're talking about the chatchila when they made it for the lechem. Okay. So Gemara says, that's the case with Chiddush. So it says that Kamashmal nir bechutz v'shol b'fnim nidem mishum lechem. But he says that even when the front wall is the ending of the front wall is a bit recessed, and from standing inside the mobile you can't see there's a bit of a front wall which is in front of the walls of the mobile, because you can't see that when you're standing inside. So it's the inside you see only the outside you see the lechem. So that's also counted as a lechem. So that's the picture. Okay. Toshma the Rav Rabbi Yosef the another Rav was sitting the Bahum Avua this Mavui. One second. The Rav Rabbi Yosef Bahum Avua. Rabbi Yosef Rav Huna Kamei, and Rav Huna was sitting next to him. Amar the Shama, Rav said to Shama Zila Aisli Kuza the Maya. Bring me a jug of water. So Rav is saying to his Shamash, bring me a jug of water. The kids are Ada also nofalech. As till the Shamash came to the water, the lechi fell down. So he's sitting in the mavui, so he can't carry it out. So achvul biyode. So showed him with his hands. Kamaduchte. So showed him with his hands. Don't go. Just stay. Stop. But yeah, so Rav Huna said, but there's a palm tree over there. So the palm tree should be the lechi. Okay, before Shabbos, the palm tree grows by itself, obviously, and it's they made a different lechi to serve as a lechi, but it fell down. So you can't rely on this lechi. That's what Rav Huna asked him. This palm tree is not good enough to serve as a lechi, even though the proper lechi has fallen down. Omer said, "Domi Haimer Rabbanim Kamei Pashi into Shmais." It's like he hasn't learned the pirush of the halachas. He doesn't know the halachas. That's what Rav's reaction was. His reaction was, he said, "Listen, it looks like this person doesn't know halachas." He says, "Misam chinla me'esmail." Did I prepare it to Erev Shabbos to think that that's going to be lechi? So what the Gemara says. So what was the problem? Why he considered dekel is not a lechi? So the reason why he said he can't consider lechi because he didn't think about it from before Shabbos. If you would have thought about it, have a lechi would have been a lechi, even though that dekel evidently was evidently that lechi that dekel was there. It just wasn't put there for the purpose of a lechi. Otherwise, it wouldn't have made another lechi. So it wasn't. And Rav relied on it. So Rav would have relied on it. It wouldn't be the problem that he didn't think about it before Shabbos. So fine. So we see from here, that from Rav that the halacha is not like Rava, but the halacha is like Abaya. That lechi ha'im me'elav is a lechi. Why? Because a lechi is mishum mechitza. A lechi is really a mechitza, and therefore you don't need to plant it. You don't have to create it specially for the purpose of a lechi, like Abaya. The Gemara asks, let's say Abaya v'Rava v'dolei simchin lepligi hosamchin alei have a lechi. So maybe it says one is asking, maybe Abai Rabbi, the assumption that they're arguing when he didn't think about it Erev Shabbos, it is not, they don't argue. Maybe they do argue. Maybe the Gemara says, let's say that Abai Rabbi, they're arguing when you don't rely upon it. And but if you thought about it, Erev Shabbos, then they agree that it is a lechi, and therefore there'll be no kasha from Rav. This kasha, which disproves that this kasha from Rav, the story of Rav, disproves Abaya. If we would say that Rav agrees that if you're relying from Erev Shabbos, if we say that Rabbi agrees that if you light from Erev Shabbos, it's a good lechi, so then there would be no kasha from Rav, because the reason Rav gave, because we didn't rely from Erev Shabbos, and if we say that Rabbi will hold like that, and Abaya he will say that Abaya he says that even when you didn't think about it, it's Erev Shabbos is kosher, because how do we know exactly what they're arguing? Maybe that's the argument. The kid says, so the Gemara says, Lo Yisakadaita. Why? You can't say that. That's, and then we would get to the usual. Usually the halacha would be like Rabbi, so that would be good. Make it like every time when we have the halacha like Rabbi. So the Gemara says, you can't say that. There was this porch, which was the house of this Bar Chavo, and this porch, which was made for a porch, was this porch which was made for a porch, and by also happened to be a lechi, and they have a pligba by the and all the years they would argue. Now all the years they're arguing. So the problem with that thing was made for a porch. It was made for a porch, and it's not like one Shabbos came and they didn't know is it kosher or not. All the years they argued about it, whether it's considered a lechi or not. And so therefore the chisaron of the porch was that the beam of that porch was the beam which was part of the porch, which could have been like, could serve like a lechi, was that it wasn't made for it. It was made for the porch, not to be a lechi. But of course, it was there from the Erev Shabbos, and the people, according to some people, they wanted to rely upon it. So therefore, and that nevertheless, Rabbi didn't agree. So you see that the argument is when they are relying on it, even then, Rabbi says it's not considered lechi, and Abai says it is considered lechi. And therefore, from Rav, we see that Allah is like Abai and not Rabbi. I think I'll stop over here.